have to do. John is checking everything, and he says, yes. Wow, that was the quickest one ever, John. Good job. I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. Glad you could be here. What we do is we do this as two 24-minute segments. If you have any questions, feel free to type in whatever health question you have during that 24 minutes. I then will answer the questions. Then we'll do another 24 minutes, and then I'll answer questions again. So this is a great opportunity for you to have any of your health questions answered. And so many of you have questions. Obviously, I'm bombarded with questions all day, every day, because people don't know where to turn. Where do you go when you have a health question and your doctors have said, well, nothing's wrong, or we don't know what else to do, or maybe where do you even start? Which doctor do you turn to? I want to be your doctor. I want to help navigate your health care throughout your life and get you to the right doctors and the right practitioners so that you can get the best care possible. I want to get you well and keep you well, I always say. So, John, I am ready to start whenever you are. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. I'm glad you're with me today, and I'm going to answer a question for you today. Is sugar really all that bad? You're going to be surprised at the answer. Now, sugar isn't always bad for you. Sugar's got a bad rap. Your body needs glucose. That's a form of sugar. There's glucose, maltose, fructose, galactose. There's different types of sugar. And you need glucose to survive. Even if you're on an all-meat diet, your body is going to create glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis because the cells need that to function. A lot of doctors and researchers jumped on that all-meat, all-protein bandwagon a while ago, got all excited about it, and then after the long-term research came out, said, maybe it's not the best thing for you long-term. And some complex carbohydrates, that's the key word, can actually be beneficial for you. And so we're going to talk about that today. Now, you don't need to eat glucose or other sugars because your body does make it. If you do eat it, sugar goes into the brain and affects a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens. And nucleus accumbens releases dopamine, and you get high from it. You actually get a rush of a good feeling from it. And so what do you want to do? You want to eat more. That's why I say, how much sugar should you eat? More. Because whenever I have anything, if I have a piece of bread, I want more. Because once my brain starts releasing that dopamine, I start going, woohoo, I like this. And so it's not the bread, it's not the cookies, it's not the donuts that you're craving, it's the high you're getting from it. Very similar to dairy products. Dairy products have a chemical called casomorphins. Casomorphins is a form of morphine, essentially stimulates the morphine receptor sites in the brain, and you get high from it. So you want more. And that's why people say, Doc, I love my cheese. I cannot give up my cheese. It's not the cheese you like. It's the casomorphine effect on your brain that you like. You're getting high from it. Why wouldn't you want more? It's not the cheese. And why cheese and not milk? Because milk, the casomorphins are watered down. When we make cheese, we take the water out and concentrate those casomorphins. And so you're just getting high from it. So when you understand physiology and how the body works and how the brain works, it makes it a lot easier to understand things like addiction. I have a whole protocol I have for addiction. If you go to my website, drjoe.com, just type addiction in the search bar, and that's a good starting point. But we have a whole protocol with nutrition, supplements, and everything to help nutrition because the brain just wants more nutrition. And when it does, it's able to downregulate or calm down, and it's not so reactive. When it's starving for anything, nutrition especially, it will do stupid things. It'll crave drugs. It'll crave sugar. It'll crave gambling. When we start to nourish the brain, many times, not always, we're able to downregulate the brain, and the brain starts to function more efficiently. So that's just a little side note for you there. Now, there are two types of sugar, natural sugar and added sugar. We'll keep it simple here. Natural sugar occurs naturally in foods. That's the fruit. That's the sugar in milk, which is a lactose, which I'm not a fan of, but it naturally occurs. Many sugars are combined with other ingredients, and that's when we get the high fructose corn syrup and the cane sugars and the brown sugars. That's the added sugars. That's the problem. So sugar adds sweetness, of course, to the food. Men can take about 19 teaspoons of sugar daily. Okay? A can of soda has between 9 and 11 teaspoons. So if you have a can of soda, you're almost at the maximum of sugar for the day. Women a little less. Women can do about 15 teaspoons a day. So let's talk about how bad sugar is for the body, or how good it is, and what happens when you eat it. So sugar is a carbohydrate, and that makes it an essential macronutrient. So carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are called macro, or big nutrients. Micronutrients are the vitamins, minerals, and things like this. Every cell in your body requires glucose to run properly. Now, it can run on things like ketones, but again, short term, you might have an effect. Long term, we're starting to see some adverse effects. Now, you can blow up my inbox and yell at me, oh, I read an article somewhere on the web. That's fine. This is the research that I've done. This is what I know to work. And that's why you're listening to me. Glucose is what your body runs on. It needs glucose. The brain needs glucose. Every cell in the body needs it. Now, other types of sugars, like we said, there's fructose, galactose, lactose, maltose. Different ones come from different sources. But all of them have to be converted into glucose in order for the body to use it. That's the key, the conversion. And when we convert, we may have some problems. I'll talk about that in just a second. So your body breaks it down. When does sugar production breakdown start? In your mouth. In your saliva, you have a chemical called salivary amylase. Salivary amylase starts to break down sugars, carbohydrates. Then sugar travels into your digestive system. Your stomach, not so much absorption there. The stomach basically breaks down proteins into amino acids. Then whatever is in the stomach passes into the small intestine, and your pancreas releases amylase, lipase, and protease, which break down carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And then if you have fats still that need digestion, your gallbladder kicks in. So protein, carbohydrates, and fats each have two places that they're broken down. Your body has redundancy. So carbohydrates, the mouth, and then the pancreas and the upper part of the small intestine. Proteins, stomach, and the upper part of the small intestine. Fats, upper part of the small intestine, and the gallbladder. So you have redundancy. This way, if you have your gallbladder removed, let's say, you don't die. Now, if you have your gallbladder removed, I strongly advise you take a supplement. The one I recommend is called Cholacol. If you send me an email through the website, drjoe.com, I'll send you a link to the one I recommend. It's really cheap. It's about $18 a bottle. And whenever you eat a fatty food, you want to take one of these pills. I cannot stress that enough. If you have your gallbladder removed, you got to replace that stored bile. So, in fact, we posted on it a while ago, and it went viral on the internet. People going nuts. I'd never heard this. Why did anybody tell me this? Because your body will still produce bile, but it doesn't have a storehouse. And that's what the gallbladder was, like a balloon full of bile. And when you eat fat, the gallbladder would squeeze out the bile and you digest the fats. Well, if you don't have a gallbladder, you're kind of dripping, essentially, bile into the small intestine to break down the fats, but you don't have that reserve. So if I'm eating something that has a little bit of fat in it, probably okay. If I eat something like an avocado, if I eat something fried, if I eat cheese, I don't have this reserve. And so now the food can't be digested properly. So that's why it's important to supplement if you don't have a gallbladder. And like I said, it's the cheapest investment you'll ever make. And I've had people come in my office crying, saying, oh my gosh, I've been so sick since I had my gallbladder removed. I feel so good. I've had other people say, I thought I was fine. I started taking this and I feel great. Thank you for that information. And that's what this show's all about. I'm trying to give you information to get you well and keep you well. So sugar tends to be absorbed into the blood system pretty quickly. And when you eat sugar, the glucose specifically, what's going to happen is your body releases insulin from your pancreas. The pancreas says, ooh, there's sugar around, I'm going to release insulin. Insulin goes out to the cells and acts like a key. It goes into the cell and opens up the cell so that glucose can get into the cell and it can be utilized as fuel. If the key isn't working, it's a problem. Why wouldn't the key work? One of the main reasons the key doesn't open up the cell, the insulin doesn't open up the cell, is because of seed oils. We talked about that. We did a whole show on this a while ago. Canola oils, soybean oils, corn oils, safflower oils, sunflower oils. These oils, in its purest form, is probably not a bad thing in the actual component that it's in. But when it's extracted out, we use heat, we use chemicals, and this changes the molecular structure of the oil. And these oils can gunk up the keyhole. So now the key doesn't fit. Insulin doesn't fit into the cell. The cell can't open up and let glucose in. So what happens is glucose builds up in your blood. You have high blood sugar, known as diabetes in certain cases. So what do? We can give you drugs to try to force the sugar into the cells. Or what if we just cleaned up the keyhole? Cut out those seed oils. And I can go on and on and on. I did a whole show on seed oils and how dangerous they are. Worse than sugar when it comes to diabetes, the seed oils versus the sugar for diabetics. So cut out those seed oils and you'll be able to process your food better. But let's assume we're going to eat high fructose corn syrup. It's everywhere, right? High fructose corn syrup gets into the body, and the fructose has to be converted into glucose in order for the body to use it. When the fructose is converted into glucose in the liver, it creates something called uric acid as a waste product. Uric acid gets in your joints and it hurts. And as a pain management expert, I want to make sure that we get the patients out of pain every way we possibly can, whether it's through chiropractic care, through nutrition, anti-inflammatory supplements. I'm not against medications, but let's see if we can do natural work as well and maybe, just maybe, not need the medications. So if we can get the fructose converting to glucose, uric acid gets into the joints and it hurts. In the process, it slows down your body's production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens up your blood vessels and increases circulation. Your heart, your lungs, your brain, your sex organs, your muscles, everything relies on blood supply. The nervous system, the brain. So we need to have that nitric oxide to open up the blood vessels. As you get older, your nitric oxide level drops. And so we want to increase that nitric oxide level, and we can do that by supplementing. Now, there's a supplement I take. It's on my website, drjoe.com. It's called Nitric Oxide Support. And what it is citrulline. Citrulline allows the body to create nitric oxide and open up the blood vessels. I love my nitric oxide supplements. Energy levels, brain function, brain fog, clarity of thought. Many times it helps with sexual dysfunction because the reason we don't have good circulation in many cases is we have low nitric oxide for men and women. Open up the blood vessels with nitric oxide, you get blood going to the sex organs, and things start to work again. Not every case, but many cases. So if you're doing a lot of high fructose corn syrup, you're preventing the body from properly producing nitric oxide, which can affect blood flow, but can also affect blood pressure. I've said many times that if you're using air-dried sea salt, that's an okay salt to use in most cases if you have high blood pressure. It's the high fructose corn syrup that's actually worse. So you want to cut out that high fructose corn syrup because it's so bad and it's everywhere. Why do we use it? It's cheaper than regular sugar and it's sweeter than regular sugar. So if I can make you buy my product and it's cheaper and you're going to buy more of it because it's sweeter, darn right I'm going to sell it to you. I wouldn't, not me personally, but so that's why we use high fructose corn syrup, because it's sweeter and cheaper. Not good for you. In fact, it's much worse, and because of the uric acid problems. So when you eat sugar, how does sugar make you fat? I'm eating sugar. It converts into glucose. Glucose goes into my cells. Insulin opens up the cells. Glucose goes in. Hey, my cells are rocking. Everybody's happy. Now, I keep eating sugar. My cells say, insulin, stop opening me up because I can't let any more sugar in. It's going to gunk up the works. And so the cells resist the insulin. That's called insulin resistance, also known as type 2 diabetes. So insulin resistance occurs. The cells don't open up. The glucose starts to build up in my blood. So the body says, I can't have sugar floating around in the blood at that level because sugar can cause damage to my blood vessels, my nerves. So the body says, I got to get this sugar out of the blood. What do I do with it? I know I'm going to store it as something called glycogen, and I'm going to use it later on. So the body in its infinite wisdom stores it in glycogen. It's in the muscles, it's in the blood vessel walls, in the liver, and you store it. Now you keep eating sugar. So the cells can't use anymore. Glycogen stores are filled. The body says, what am I going to do with the sugar? It takes it then and converts it into triglycerides, which is then stored as fat. All fat is your body's trying to protect itself from getting the sugar out of the blood, and other things too. But this is how the sugar causes the problems. So that's why when we reduce our sugar intake, the cells become more sensitive to insulin. They become less insulin resistant, so the cells are able to start to utilize the glucose more efficiently. Oh, that's kind of cool, isn't it? So sugar, again, can be good if it comes in the form of natural sugar in fruits and vegetables. So whether it's good or bad really depends on how you're eating it. So if I'm eating a piece of fruit, it has other vitamins, minerals, nutrients, antioxidants, fiber, and the body is able to utilize the fructose and convert it into glucose. and not cause so much damage. The high fructose corn syrup or the concentrated fructose or even juice, apple juice, can be toxic. I remember years ago, a doctor said to me, "What's the difference between medicine and poison?" And I said, "What?" He said, "The dose." And I thought, interesting. So the dose of the sugar is the key, and what does it come along with? Now, I said earlier, I do a lot of pain management. In fact, I'm the only chiropractor in the whole state board certified in pain management. And so when people come to us, we always do nutrition workup on every one of our patients because I want to get you the best nutrients so your body heals, but also I want to get you out of pain as quickly as possible. So when it comes to my pain management protocols, we don't use medication or drugs. We have doctors we can refer to who can give you the medication and drugs. But we want to try to get to the cause of the problem, not just cover up the pain. I'm okay with covering up the pain, but I want to get to the cause. The number one cause of back pain is pinched nerves. The number one treatment, most effective, least expensive treatment for back pain is chiropractic care. That should be a sentence that just hangs in your mind. What's the most effective, least expensive treatment for anything? And most of us are going to have back pain at some time in our lives, chiropractic care. So if you'd like to make an appointment to come see us, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. That's the Atlanta area. Or we can do a remote consultation. Just go to my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. You can book an appointment right now. Normally, the first visit is $940. I've reduced that for you guys to $299. That's an exam, x-rays, consultation, first treatment, going over the x-rays on your follow-up visit, and a complete nutrition evaluation. Why do we do that? People ask me all the time, why do you do that? It's $940. Why you? Because I want to find out what your issues are so we can direct you at the right place to go. Most cases, we can manage you as a patient. Sometimes we have to refer you out. Sometimes we co-manage the case. But you don't know that until you find out what's going to be the best course of treatment. That's why we do this. So stop suffering needlessly. Go to my website, drjoe.com, book an appointment. Don't be like so many other patients that say, Dr. Joe, I've been meaning to come see you. 20 years, 30 years. I've had people hear me speak when I was a student over 40 years ago. I've been meaning to come see you because you made sense. You're one of the few doctors I've ever heard that makes sense. And let's see if we can get you well. drjoe.com, drjoe.com, book your appointment. And we accept most insurances too. So we're talking today, is sugar really bad for you? And the answer is maybe, because there's different types of sugar. So if you're going to eat sugar in the form of a fruit or a vegetable, that's okay. Now, added sugar, in contrast, we call that empty calories. That's kind of a colloquialism. Foods high in added sugar do not have the same nutrients that a natural sugar has. Most Americans' primary sources of added sugars are sugar-sweetened beverages, baked goods, desserts, sweets. Now, there are different names for added sugar. This is tricky when it comes to science. We have different names for things. There's over 40 different names for monosodium glutamate. Monosodium glutamate, very toxic to the brain in concentrated forms. There's different names for sugar. So what might those names be? Cane juice, concentrated fruit or vegetable juice, dextrose, fructose, glucose, sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, malt syrup, maple syrup, molasses, sugar, that's actually one of them, sugar cane. And so there's a lot of different sugars out there, and I really want you to start considering reading the labels and looking at it. Now, there's also something called net carbs. People look at something and say, oh my gosh, this has a lot of carbs in it. I shouldn't eat it. Well, we want to look at net carbs. So what you do to get a net carb is take the amount of carbs, let's say it's 10 grams. Then we look at how much fiber is in the product. Let's say it's 5 grams. Do the math, minus the fiber from the carbs, and you'll get the net carbs, 5 grams of carbs now. So just because something is high in carbohydrates doesn't mean it's bad for you. It depends what fiber and other nutrients are involved with it. Now, if it's just going to be a candy bar, that's a problem. If it's an apple, not so bad. Now, some people do well not eating any natural sugars. They don't do well eating fruit. That's okay. Everybody's a little different. And that's where I want you to have an awareness of your own health. What works for you? I was 28 years old. I was on vacation, a place called Anguilla, and they sent a bottle of champagne to my room. And I had a glass of champagne. We opened a bottle. I had a glass. I felt awful. Now's the last time I had a drink. I'm not an alcoholic. I just didn't like the way it made me feel. I had an awareness. Alcohol doesn't make me feel good. Why would I keep doing this? Stop doing it. Caffeine gives me a headache. So I had an awareness to say I shouldn't do caffeine, so I don't do caffeine. So you have to pay attention to your own health and find out what works for you. The information I give you is good general advice. It works most of the time. But if you don't do well with any type of sugar, well, then just don't do the sugars. With social media, of course, people get very excited when I say something. Usually they're, oh my gosh, this is great, this is wonderful, never heard this before. And then somebody else will say, well, I ate an apple, I didn't feel good. Well, then don't eat an apple. I mean, it really is. And maybe it's not the apple, maybe it's the pesticide sprayed on the apple. We talk about wheat being something I don't like you eating because it does break down to sugar. Oh, by the way, I just saw a post that the Food and Drug Administration is now allowing the cultivation of genetically modified wheat. This is new information to me. It used to be that it was hybridized, but not genetically modified. Now we can actually do genetically modified wheat. So that scares me even more. You don't want to be doing wheat. And wheat has sugars in it, has proteins in it that are hard to digest. But many times commercial wheat is sprayed with glyphosate, weed killer. And many times it's not the wheat you're having a reaction to, it's the glyphosate. So why not just give up the wheat altogether? I like wheat. I like bread. It's not worth it. And that's a question I want you to ask yourself. Is it worth it? Ask yourself when that comes to pain, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, headaches, numbness, tingling. Is it worth getting it fixed? If the answer is no, well, then deal with it. If you'd like to get it fixed, come see us. I can't guarantee I can fix you, but my team of doctors and I are really good at getting rid of pain naturally without drugs and surgery. Again, sometimes we have to co-manage the case. But pain, great. Digestive issues, we're really good at that too. We're really good at nutrition and getting people well, talking about the protocols that they should do specifically. If you have a question, you can always send it to me through my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. And we have over 4,000 hours of content on the website. You could just type in what you're looking for, and chances are we've done a podcast or an article or something like that. If you like podcasts, just go to your podcast service and type in Dr. Joe for the health of it, Dr. Joe for the health of it, and you'll find me there. And we do at least 2 podcasts a week, sometimes more. So you can feel free to join in if you'd like to, listen in. And again, the questions, just go through my website, drjoe, drjoe.com. When you're hungry, you're not hungry for food, you're hungry for nutrition. And that's why when you give yourself things like sugar and it stimulates the release of dopamine in the brain, you get high from it and you want more. So people ask me all the time, what can I do about that? What can I do to break my sugar cravings? Number one, load up your body with nutrients. Give your body the nutrients that it requires. The minimum supplements I would recommend everybody take: Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. They're 2 powders. They taste great. I mix a scoop of each together. You can shake it up with water, coconut milk, almond milk, mix in frozen berries, mix in a frozen banana, make it a smoothie. Again, I don't care how you get here. Alita Adams had a song way back a long time ago. I don't care how you get here, just get here. So I don't care how you get it in your body, just get it in your body. I would also recommend Dr. Joe's methylated B complex because 44% of people can't absorb some B vitamins if they're not methylated, so let's just do methylated ones. I would also recommend vitamin D with K2. Very important if you're taking vitamin D3, make sure there's K2 with it. And that would be like my starter kit for supplements. Now, we can customize plans. You can read all the other supplements we have on the website and decide what's best for you. I love nitric oxide. Opens up my blood vessels. I take about 15 different supplements a day. Why? Because it works. Supplements, I believe, are not a luxury. They're a necessity. And so all the supplements are on the website, drjoe.com. You can book appointments through the website, send me questions. Once again, I want to be your doctor. Got more coming up, but I want you to follow me on social media. Just look up Dr. Joe Esposito. Facebook is the Dr. Joe Esposito. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We have gone viral numerous times. And it's 1-minute posts, 1-minute health tips. And it's pretty crazy. If you don't like it, just unfollow me. It's very simple. Now, if you like the longer version, go to YouTube or the podcast, Dr. Joe for the Health of It on podcasts, and you get the long version of the information. But I give you these 1-minute tips. Now, it's not the end-all be-all because you need more information than 1 minute, but that's a great way to start. So I want to get this information to you any way I can. You can ask me questions. You can follow me on social media. You can go to my website. You can sign up for our newsletter. It's on the website. I want to get you well and keep you well. Folks, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito, drjoe.com. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. It goes too fast. I need more time. What else you got, John?
What do you think about copper drinking bottles as well as hydrogen drinking bottles?
The hydrogen water, the jury's still out on. I've done some research on it. I've never tried it myself, so I really can't give you an opinion. Copper, you can get copper from nuts and seeds. I'm not sure you have to drink out of a bottle to get the copper. My concern is what else is mixed in with a copper drinking vessel, and if you put acid in there, like tomato juice or an orange juice, is that going to be a problem? So I don't think they're necessary at this point. I may change my mind in the future, but right now I'd say they're not necessary.
I'm cooking potatoes for Thanksgiving. What is the healthiest way to prepare them?
The best way to cook a potato, or any starch, rice, pastas, breads, is you want to cook it, put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then eat it the next day. You can heat it up the next day or eat it cold is fine. But again, with holidays coming, it's a great idea to make your carbohydrate meals the night before and then put them in the refrigerator. You're going to absorb sometimes 40% less carbohydrates. It creates something called a resistant starch. I did a resistant starch post on social media, and it literally every few minutes we were getting comments on it. Just crazy. And, you know, it's just science. If you heat something up and cool it, it creates a resistant starch when it comes to potatoes, rice, things like that. And it's just science. It's not me. It's not an opinion. This is how science works. If you have potatoes and then you put a little oil on them and fry them up and make it crispy, like hash browns or French fries, that creates something called acrylamides. Acrylamides are suspected, depending on the study you read, suspected or known carcinogens. So I would strongly advise you'd stay away from those crispy potatoes. I like them. I know. Don't get mad at me. But the same thing with toast. The darker your toast is, the more acrylamides. Crackers, if they brown, it's acrylamides. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but this is science. So with potatoes, though, and starchy meals, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, cook them, cool them, eat them the next day. You're going to thank me for it. What else you got?
My A1C is over 13, and my doctor wants me to start taking insulin shots. Do you have any other options for me?
Well, I can't tell you to take drugs or not take drugs, but I can tell you to go to my website, drjoe.com, and just type the word diabetes in the search bar. And we did a whole show on diabetes. There are certain supplements I would strongly advise you take. Of course, Super Green Essential Source. Glutathione is probably going to help with the liver. You got to cut out. You got to cut out. You got to cut out. Did you hear me? You got to cut out those seed oils. Everywhere. They're in crackers, they're in cookies, they're in processed foods. It's your vegetable oils, your canolas, your corn. You gotta stop them. If your goal is to try to get the body to utilize insulin more efficiently. If it's not, it's your call, what you do. But listen to the show on diabetes, and then if you still have questions, let me know. Type in seed oils too. I might want to listen to the show on seed oils as well. What else?
What are some examples of highly processed foods?
The definition of a highly processed food is something that has ingredient or ingredients in it that you wouldn't find in the average kitchen. So that would be a highly processed food, what we call ultra-processed foods. Another definition I saw is it wrapped in plastic and has a label on it. That could be extreme. I mean, you could wrap an orange in plastic and have a label on it. But ingredients that you wouldn't see in your average kitchen. Another rule I have is if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. It's probably an ultra-processed food. So here's my rule on food. If your grandmother ate it, you can eat it. Even when it comes to meats and dairy products. Again, I'm not a fan of those, but if your grandmother could have eaten it, you can eat it when she was a kid. So that's a good rule to follow. What else you got? Lots of questions today.
Should I steam rice or boil it?
Either way, I don't think it matters, but if you're going to eat rice, you want to make sure that it's California organic, because all rice has arsenic in it, absorb it from the soil. And California Organic seems to have the lowest amount of arsenic in it. So I want you to make a right choice. And strangely enough, you're not going to hear me say this very often, the white rice is better than the brown rice. The brown rice has more arsenic in it than the white rice. So steam or boiling, I don't think it really matters, but just make sure you get California Organic. What else got there, Johnny boy?
That is all.
All right. Ready for round two? Take my sip of tea. Where was I? Okay, there you go. Ready? Hey, folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. If you're just joining me, welcome. If you stayed with me, thank you. I appreciate that because I know a lot of you are busy and everybody's got a busy schedule. And so I do appreciate you taking time out of your day. Let's talk about how sugar affects your body. We talked about is sugar good for you earlier, and the answer was maybe. If it's in a natural form, like a carrot or a potato, not potato, if you do a resistant starch on a potato, but an apple or an orange, you're okay with that. When you start juicing the fruits, you take out the fiber and a lot of phytonutrients, and so then it's like drinking sugar water. So it depends on the source of the sugar, where it comes from. And there's different types of sugar. There's fructose, glucose, galactose, maltose. Breast milk has sugar in it. Well, that's a good sugar, okay? Cow's milk has lactose in it, but it's a different type of lactose than a human would produce. And you need an enzyme called lactase to break down the lactose. Well, when you're a baby, you have lactase to break down your mother's milk. But as you become an adult, you stop producing the lactase. And so you have trouble digesting the lactose. And so that's a problem there. So eating too much sugar regularly has been shown to cause a lot of problems. Your thinking, your energy, your stress levels. But let's talk about some other things that can happen. Sugar cravings. The more you eat, it stimulates the nucleus accumbens in your brain, releases dopamine, you get high. So what happens is when I get high, whether it's from drugs, sugar, romance, gambling, you get this big rush of dopamine first time. And the brain says, whoa, that was a little too much. I'm going to down-regulate you. I'm not going to ever get you that high again because that was just too much pleasure for you. And we don't want the brain getting overwhelmed. And again, this is simply put. So the brain down-regulates, and so you need more of the stimulant to get high the next time, and more the next time, and more the next time. The brain keeps down-regulating. So we said earlier, how much sugar do you want? More. That's pretty much it. If you eat sugar, you're going to want more sugar. So here's a little trick for you. Well, let me tell you a little bit something first. We eat so much sugar now than we did a long time ago, and the sugar is so concentrated. And then we came out with high fructose corn syrup, which is even sweeter than sugar. And these foods that we're producing, many of the processed foods are ultra or hyper palatable. They're so good, you just want to eat more. There's a branch called food science. And food science is designed to have you eat more of the food. It's other things too, but it has you designed to eat more of the food. So in food science, we try to figure out what's the magic combination to make you eat more. And it turns out one of the best combinations we can have is salt, fat, and sugar. And that's really hard to resist that and stop eating it. Well, what would be the quintessential salt, fat, sugar food? Potato chips. Any type of chips, really. And if you're like me, you probably are, once you eat something like that, you want more. Remember the old phrase, can't eat just one? Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. Because you're getting so high from that, you want to eat more, more, more. And I remember when I was a kid, I would eat potato chips. I like barbecued potato chips personally. And my mouth would be raw inside. I don't know why. I was so sensitive. And I just kept eating them. And I'm thinking, why? It hurts so much. I can't stop. One more bite. Well, as an adult and as a scientist, I learned that where my brain is just overstimulated and I'm getting high from it. So these hyper palatable foods are a big issue. So here's a little trick I want you to consider. When you're craving sugar or something you just can't stop eating, eat the opposite. So for example, I'm craving sugar. I want to have ice cream. I want to have donuts. I want to have carrot cake. That's my favorite, by the way. I want to have carrot cake. What I'll do is I'll eat something very sour first, a dill pickle, maybe a couple of tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You can mix it with water if you want to. And that oftentimes blunts the craving and stops it dead in its tracks. It's really kind of cool. So when you have these cravings, you can do that first. And then if you want to eat something, go ahead. Chances are your logic will now come back, will reign supreme in your brain, and you'll say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't eat that. So there's another supplement. It's called Gymnema. If you send me an email through the website, drjoe.com, I'll send you a link to the one I recommend. And it helps stabilize blood sugar. And I've had people that are really tough, addicts. And I'll say, okay, here's what I want you to do. Chew the capsule and then eat something sweet. What happens is it loses its flavor. You can't taste anything sweet when you chew one of these Gymnema capsules. And it doesn't taste good. It tastes horrible, actually. But that's not why I have you do it. And people say, well, I don't feel like eating it now because it doesn't have any flavor to it. So that's another little trick you can do. But the sourness is kind of neat. If you eat something really sour, many times you could make more logical decisions. Because I've been there, folks. You can't stop. I remember I told the story before. I was in New York a couple of years ago. I was working at the Macy's Day Parade, and there was a vegan bagel shop. And I went in and had a vegan bagel with vegan cream cheese, and I was in heaven. It was so good. And if you've never had a New York bagel, it's a different world. I can't describe it. And I wanted more. And for the rest of the trip, it was down by Herald Square, and I was uptown, and so I was looking for another vegan bagel place. And it took a lot of my time and vacation because I wanted more. And that's what happens with most people every day. I didn't have access to it, so I walked away from it. But if you have access to your cookies, cakes, and donuts, and brownies, and candies, you just want to keep eating more. And it's unfortunate. Now, I'm coming out with a supplement for addiction specifically. And it'll be out pretty soon, actually. So when it comes out, I'll let you guys know. But it helps regulate the brain or down-regulate those pleasure centers in the brain. So I'm working on that. I'm working on several new supplements. So we're working on that to help you. But that's a little trick you can do to try to avoid those sugars. Now, it can cause tooth decay. I think we know that. The sugar feeds the bacteria, and the bacteria can eat holes in your mouth, and that becomes a big issue. So just be careful with that. And many times what happens is you have a sugar crash. If you eat nothing but sugar, the sugar gets absorbed really fast. So another trick we can do is have some protein-rich food with it. So what might be a protein-rich food? Nuts, tofu, beans. When you have the high-protein foods, hummus, it slows down the absorption of the sugar. And that's why one of the worst things you could eat for breakfast is a sweet breakfast. Pancakes and waffles and cereal and yogurts and jams, one of the worst things you can do because your blood sugar spikes and then it crashes and then you get tired and it's really counterproductive when it comes to the rest of your day. A savory breakfast would be a much better choice. I know I've been to certain countries where they'll serve you beans for breakfast. I know England, that's one of them. They'll serve you baked beans for breakfast. And the Americans, they'll be eating the sugars and the pastries and everything, and the locals will be eating something hearty and savory because it's going to give you a lot more energy. I remember when I was a child, I was in Germany, and I was working on the farms, and, breakfast was, you might have a piece of a really high-fiber bread. It was a dark bread, and you might have that with a little bit of butter and a cup of coffee in the morning. Now, I don't eat butter now. I don't drink coffee. But the high-fiber food, it wasn't sweet. You weren't sucking down jams and jellies. You had a high-fiber food to begin with. And then lunch was the big meal of the day, and then dinner was a snack. And really, that was the best way to eat. That really is still the best way to eat. And there wasn't a lot of meat because meat was expensive. So it wasn't about health. It was about expense. I grew up a big Italian family. So every Sunday we go to Grandma's house, and she'd make this big Italian meal, and there was a little bit of meat. And we came from a very large Italian family. So you'd grab what you could. And if you were late, you didn't get the meatballs. And that's just how it was. But everything else, you had a little bit of pasta. You had a lot of vegetables. Usually beans, some type of bean dish was in there. Some grains, lentils or something like that. And then at the end of the meal, you had fruit and nuts on the table. If you're Italian, you know what I'm talking about. And you always had the salad last. And when I became an adult, I remember going to a restaurant because we were very poor. We didn't go out to dinner much. And they brought me a salad first. And I thought, this is weird. Why are we having a salad now? A salad's at the end of the meal. And looking back now, my thought process is, A, it's a lot of fiber, but B, it had the vinegar in it. And if you had vinegar before your dessert, you're probably going to eat a lot less dessert because you had something sour. Now, that's strictly speculation. And a lot of these things that were passed down from generation to generation, nobody knows why they did it. They just did. My German grandmother, whenever she made split pea soup or lentil soup, she always put apple cider vinegar in it after it was cooked. And when I asked her one day, she goes, I don't know. She goes, that's how we always do it back in Germany. I thought, oh, okay. Now I understand why. Apple cider vinegar can stimulate your digestive enzymes and help you break down the raffinose, which is the sugar in beans that can cause the gas. And so you digested the food more efficiently by adding the apple cider vinegar. It wasn't a white vinegar. It wasn't a red vinegar. It was apple cider vinegar only in the soup. Well, they knew how to do it. They didn't know why they were doing it. And now we know why. The science is there. So a lot of the cool things I've been teaching you really are just things that my grandparents always did, and then science proved that they were right. Those people lived a long time. My Italian grandmother had 10 kids, God knows how many miscarriages, and she lived almost to 100. We think. We think she might have been even over 100. She didn't know when she was born. There was no records back then. You were born in a house. There were no records. So on her tombstone, we guessed a date. She thought this might have been her birthday, so we put that on there. We don't even know if that's true or not. But for somebody to have 10 kids, living very poorly, to live to, almost 100, she was doing something right. Well, she ate a lot of fruits and vegetables. She ate garlic all the time. If the wine she drank was always homemade, didn't have a lot of chemicals in it. And so as unhealthy as she was, she had arthritis and she was overweight, she still lived a very long life. So once again, if your grandmother could have eaten it when she was a kid, you can eat it. That's my rule. And that goes for meats and dairy products and everything else. I don't recommend you eat meats and dairy products, but if you do, it's got to be the kind grandma ate, which would be what? The only equivalent we have today is organic. So, other things sugar does to you. I got off on a tangent there. Brain function. Too much sugar can affect your brain. Added sugar has been linked to cognitive decline and degenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. I'm working really hard, and I've put together a protocol, and I think it's going to launch actually, where I start teaching, hopefully remotely, in senior housing developments. Because I've been in some senior housing developments, and it's scary. When my mother was getting older, I remember I took her down. She came from New Jersey, came to visit me, and I took her to several senior housing developments, and there was only one that she really liked. But then her knee failed. Knee surgery failed. Eventually, the thing that killed her. And knee replacement went bad, and they put her in a rehab senior housing. And she would call me up and say, "Get me the hell out of here. I want out. I don't care if I die. I don't want to be here." How powerful is that statement? I don't care if I die. I don't want to be here. And so got her out anyway. Senior housing has some challenges, and I want to try to do everything I can to fix that. So I'm working on that. But it kills me when I go to places where they have memory care centers. That's a nice way of saying it. And they're feeding these people Jell-O and cookies and cakes and donuts and pastas and cupcakes because it's actually making the condition substantially worse. And I posted on this one time on social media, and one person said, well, who cares at that point in your life? Doesn't matter anyway. You're old. And boy, the internet just jumped on that person and just tore them up. I sat back. I didn't even comment. I let everybody just tear this person up. And maybe it doesn't matter to you, but it matters to me. I want to have as good a life as I can for as long as I can. And if I start getting dementia, I know that sugar's bad. In fact, there was a study published, I think it was 2019. They did 1,200 Malaysian adults older than 60, and they found excessive sugar consumption was linked to poor cognitive function. And there's a lot of research like that out there. So the nervous system controls everything. And if you're dumping sugar into the brain and the brain controls everything, it can affect the brain function. And what we found now over time is the brain can't utilize the sugar anymore, and so the cells can't function. And now we call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, your pancreas doesn't produce insulin. You need to take it as a drug. It is what it is. Type 2 diabetes, the cells are insulin resistant. You have insulin, but the insulin can't open up the cell and let the glucose in. And usually that's from seed oils or too much sugar causing too much insulin, and the cells resist the insulin. We've talked about that before. Type 3 diabetes is when the brain cells can't utilize glucose. And so that's a big issue. So you really want to be careful with your sugar. And I understand it tastes good. It feels good. But there's an inflammatory effect on sugar with the central nervous system and a part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that works on memory. And so if there's inflammation in the brain and it's affecting the hippocampus, it can't work right. And it also can affect your hunger cues. You don't feel satisfied. You know you've eaten enough. You just don't feel satisfied. And so I'm going to do a show upcoming, actually, of foods that have a similar, not exactly the same, a similar reaction as the medications that people are taking now to lose weight. And it affects the hypothalamus in the brain. It's called a GLP-1 agonist, and it makes you feel like you're full. Well, I've got a list of foods I've put together and supplements. I'm going to do a show on that pretty soon. Maybe I'll make it an add-on if you send me an email or something. I'll send you the link on that. But you really want to start doing this the best you can as soon as you can. And so we said the nervous system controls everything. The brain controls the nervous system. And one of the things that can cause the brain to actually short circuit, aside from chemicals, is pain. Chronic pain can physically alter your brain. Sugar is inflammatory, which can increase your pain. So if you have chronic pain, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, headaches, numbness, tingling, muscle weakness, you want to get that pain under control as quickly as possible because the pain can actually alter the shape and the function of your brain. So what's the most effective, least expensive treatment for back pain? Isn't that the one you want? Most effective, least expensive with very, very low risk? That would be chiropractic care. So if you have pain, folks, come see us. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. I want to be your doctor. I want to help get to the cause of the problem. Let's check your nervous system. Let's check your digestive system. Let's look at your diet. Let's look at nutrient deficiencies. What can we supplement the body with? What foods can we start putting in the body? The supplement is just that. It's a supplement to your foods. It's not by itself. It's an addition. So if you'd like to make an appointment, if you're ready to stop suffering, go to my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. You can book an appointment. We accept most insurances. Normally, the first visit is $940. I've reduced that to $299 for you, my listeners. That's an exam, x-rays, consultation, first treatment, going over the x-rays, and a complete nutrition evaluation. We do this because we want to find out what's going to be the best course of treatment for you instead of just randomly saying, well, you got back pain, let's take some drugs, let's give you some injections. You know what? Let's do surgery. I've studied a lot of MRIs in my day, gosh knows. And 39% of MRIs are false positive. So what that means is you come to me and you have back pain. I do an MRI, you have a swollen disc or something that we find on the MRI. 39% of the time, that's not the cause of your back pain. It's an incidental finding. And so many people will go to have surgery because, yes, you have a swollen disc. Yes, you have back pain. Let's do surgery. They do the surgery. It didn't work. There's actually an insurance code called failed low back surgery syndrome because it's so common. So let's try everything we can first, naturally. If it doesn't work, we can always go to drugs. We can always go to surgery. We can always go to ablations. You can always do something called intercept procedure, and then you could always go to surgery. So let's build our way up. Let's start basic and build our way up. In most cases, we can avoid the extreme, which of course is the surgery. If you need surgery, though, I have the doctors that I would go to if I needed surgery. The neurosurgeons, the orthopedic surgeons. These are the folks I would trust if I needed surgery. Because there's good doctors out there and there's not so good doctors out there. I would only go to the best. I would only send my friends to the best, and I only want to send you to the best. So if you want to make an appointment, I digress, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. We're on the VA referral list. If the VA refers you, they pay for your treatment. We take Medicare. I treat car accidents. I have for 40 years, and I teach other doctors how to deal with car accidents. In a car accident, many times there's brain damage. The head snaps back and forth, and the brain slams into the skull. And it's called a contra Q injury, and it's called a traumatic brain injury. They used to call it mild and severe traumatic brain injuries, but mild is not mild. Mild is just less than severe. I was hit by a car when I was 10 years old. I had a severe traumatic brain injury. I was in a coma for several days. That's a severe traumatic brain injury. It never goes away. It may get better, but it never totally heals. And so you got to avoid things like glutamic acid, monosodium glutamate, caffeine, aspartame, the aspartic acid. These things can blow up the brain, metaphorically speaking, and cause some pretty serious problems. So if you've had a TBI, and chances are a lot of you have, talk to me. Let's put together a protocol specifically for you, because a lot of you are struggling and don't even realize it was from that one hit you took in football, the time you fell on the ice when you're ice skating and banged your head against the ice, that car accident you had when you were 15 years old. These things don't go away sometimes, and that's why you need my help. So we want to take care of the brain. We want to make sure it has the proper amount of fuel. We want to make sure it has the nutrients that it needs. We want to make sure that the hypothalamus isn't being overexcited. The nucleus accumbens isn't releasing too much dopamine. The hippocampus is still able to function and create memories. Not create memories, retrieve memories. So let's get to the cause of the problems. This is a unique approach in healthcare. And that's why after 40 years, I'm still more excited today than I was ever before, because I'm smarter today than I ever was before, and I have a lot more tools that I can use to help analyze your specific concern. So go to my website, drjoe.com. You can also send me questions through the website. I'm happy to answer your health questions for you, drjoe.com. Follow me on social media. Just look up Dr. Joe Esposito. Facebook is the Dr. Joe Esposito. We post every single day. We get hundreds, sometimes thousands of followers every day following us because the information is great. It's 1-minute tips. If you don't like it, stop following me. If you like the long version, follow us on YouTube and you'll get the long version. If you like the short version, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever works for you. Follow them all. Then you can decide what works best for you. Too much sugar, that's what we're talking about today, can accelerate something called oxidation. And if you have sugar and it binds to a protein, it creates something called advanced glycated end products, AGE. It's kind of funny, it's called AGE, right? Advanced glycated end products. And it can attack, simply put, the collagen in your body and cause wrinkles. And so if you have wrinkly skin, chances are the advanced glycated end products are breaking down the skin, but they're also breaking down the connective tissue inside your body, the stuff that holds your organs together, the stuff that holds your joints together. So sugar and proteins can be a real serious problem. So another reason to avoid the added sugars, not the sugars that's found in the food. We talked about how you can make you gain weight. Because the sugar, the glucose is utilized. If there's too much glucose, it converts into glycogen. If there's not enough place to put glycogen anymore, it converts into triglycerides, which is then stored as fat. And that's how sugar makes fat. Pretty simple there. We talked about the advanced glycated end products. It can raise your stress levels. Research has shown that sweets can lower stress levels short term, but then long term can actually increase your cortisol levels. And cortisol is a hormone that's released that makes you store fat, actually. Cortisol is released when you're under stress. Now, right now, if wherever you are, gunshot goes off. Boom, you're going to be under stress. You're going to kick into what's called the sympathetic nervous system. Cortisol is going to be released. You're going to start utilizing fuel. Long term, short term, that's great. Long term, it becomes a problem, and the body says, I'm under stress all the time. I need to store energy. Well, calories are also called energy now, and calories get stored as fat. And so it's storing energy because it doesn't know when the stress is going to end, and it wants to make sure it has enough reserves to deal with it in the future. Well, in the old days, the stress was probably short-term. Now we have a long-term stress. It was probably long-term stress then too. But we have a lot more chemicals and additives and things that can adversely affect your health. So long-term sugar can be a real big problem. So how much sugar should you eat? Almost out of time. Let's talk about that. Some examples of sugar, about 50 grams a day, 10% of your total caloric intake, okay? 16-ounce glass apple juice, 48 grams. That's all the sugar for a whole day. Sweet heat-baked beans, 26 grams. But again, it has fiber in it. The apple juice doesn't, so now we have what's called a net carbohydrate. That's different. Honey yogurt, 25 grams, not a lot of calories, not a lot of fiber there. 2 of those, all the sugar you should have for a day. 1 piece of chocolate cake you'd find in a grocery store, 55 grams, all the sugar you should eat for a day. So cutting out those added sugars is going to be tough. If you don't know what to eat, go to my website, drjoe.com, and just type in, so what can I eat? And I gave you a talk there, and it's a lot of good information. It'll tell you what to eat. If you want to know what not to eat, type in 7 Deadly Sins of Nutrition, and then type in, so what can I eat? 2 different talks. Any questions, send them to me through my website, drjoe.com. I'm happy to answer your questions for you. The best thing you can do is come see us. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. If you can't come see us, we can do a remote consultation. Let's check your nervous system. Let's check your digestive system. Let's look at your diet. Let's get to the cause of the problems. Again, the minimum supplements you should take: Super Greens, Essential Source B Complex, and Vitamin D with K2. All of those are on the website, drjoe.com. Folks, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Tried to give you little sound bites there. Okay, good. John, what you got?
What do you think about sugar cane?
Sugar cane, if you eat the whole sugar cane with the fiber in it, it's probably okay. If you're sucking the juice out, well, it removes a lot of the nutrients then. So a lot of the fiber, which is going to be the key. So it's probably better than processed sugar, but it's not good. It's just better. So what else?
What are your thoughts on berberine?
Berberine is wonderful. In fact, I'm coming out with a berberine supplement, a berberine, depending how you want to pronounce it. That helps stabilize blood sugar. And I wish all diabetics would take it. So we're coming out with a berberine supplement, actually, a blood sugar stabilizer. So we've got about 8 different supplements coming out pretty soon, and that's going to be one of them. So what else?
Are there supplements for collagen?
You can take supplements for collagen, but what it is they'll take collagen out of animal products. They'll take the cartilage of an animal, and they'll take that cartilage and grind it up, basically, and put it in a supplement. That's a real simple version. It's usually processed, too. But the problem is that animals store a lot of heavy metals, just like you and I, in their cartilage. And so the mercury, lead, cadmium, and so it's probably not the best idea. The way to build up your cartilage is make sure you have healthy digestion, because the human diet has 20 amino acids in it, and the stomach will break those proteins down into amino acids, send them to the liver, get reconfigured, and then sent out to be liver or blood or cartilage. So really the key is going to be a good diet. Now, if you have damage to a cartilage, we have a machine in our offices called an acoustic wave therapy machine. It sends really, really fast impulses into the joint, whether any joint, breaks up scar tissue, increases circulation, and it recruits stem cells. We have had countless patients over the years come in and say, frozen shoulder, their knee is worn out, they need a hip replacement, and it's only about 8 treatments total. And they'll say, Doc, I can walk again. A friend of mine who's really having a really tough time, we did 2 treatments on him. He called me up, he started cursing at me. I said, what's wrong? He goes, what the hell is this stuff? He said, I can walk upstairs again. What did you do to me? And he was joking, of course. Another woman the other day crying her eyes out when I walked in the room. I said, what's wrong? She goes, I was told I need a total shoulder replacement. I had no range of motion. I'd done physical therapy. We went ahead and did the acoustic wave therapy on her, and she's raising her hand over her head and crying. I can't believe this. I don't need the surgery anymore. So that's how I want to build up cartilage. That's a better way. What else you got?
Are there any benefits of drinking organic coffee?
There are benefits. There's also downsides. But if you're going to drink coffee, which I wish you wouldn't, if you're going to drink coffee, you need to do organic only. Organic decaf would be the best choice. But there are some benefits. There's some antioxidants in it. It does increase circulation. The caffeine is there for brain function. So there are pros and cons, but you can get all the pros from other foods and supplements without the cons. But I also know that about 85% of the country drinks coffee. So at least do organic. Organic decaf, better still. What else?
What are your thoughts on sweet potatoes?
They're fine. No problem. Do organic. Anything that grows underground, do organic, because you're going to absorb chemicals and stuff. And so organic sweet potatoes, perfectly fine. Cook them, put them in a refrigerator overnight, eat them the next day. You're going to absorb about 40% less carbohydrates. It's a resistant starch. Those resistant starches become probiotics that feed the good bacteria in your colon. So, yeah, cook them and put them in a refrigerator.
What will you eat on Thanksgiving?
I don't know yet. It's only going to be 3 people that I know that I'm going to be with on Thanksgiving. But I've been plant-based now for 39 years, and so what I do is I eat the side dishes. I'll have the broccoli, and I'll have the string beans, and I'll have the cauliflower, and I'll have the hummus, and so I just eat the side dishes. And to me, a meal certainly is pleasant. I enjoy the camaraderie of it, and it's also to nourish my body. It's not about hedonism for me. Now, I love good food. Don't get me wrong. I love cooking. I love taking a rainy Sunday. In fact, last weekend, I just cooked the whole weekend, and I got more food than I know what to do with. So you don't have to eat the turkey just because it's Thanksgiving. You don't have to eat the cranberry sauce that's loaded with sugar just because it's Thanksgiving. Enjoy the family, enjoy the good food, and enjoy good health. And because especially Thanksgiving is the kickoff for cold and flu season. So if you're going to load up on sugars and cookies and cakes and donuts and pastas and turkey that you hardly ever eat and stuffing that you hardly ever eat, your body doesn't know how to digest it properly, you're going to kick off the cold and flu season with a bang probably. So you want to avoid that if you can. What else?
That is all.
All right. Thanks, guys. I do appreciate you. Again, please follow me on all platforms, Dr. Joe Esposito. Any questions, send them through the website or make an appointment to come see us, drjoe.com, and we'll see you next week.